All right, good afternoon, everyone. We have a triple joint committee this afternoon with the Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism, our good friends from the Committee on Public Safety and Intergovernmental and Military Affairs, and our other friends from the Committee on Health. We are on our 3 o'clock agenda on this day, March 22nd, Monday. Before we begin, I have to make a few housekeeping announcements. This meeting, including the audio and video of remote participants, is being streamed live on YouTube. You will find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website, so you can watch these hearings free all day, every day. In the unlikely event that we hit some technical turbulence and this hearing takes a nosedive, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, March 24th. A public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. And for those participating remotely, all testifier audio will be muted and video disabled until shortly before it is your turn to testify. With that said, we will move on to the one item on this agenda, which is House Bill 1286 HD2 relating to travel. I just want to say at the outset, we have a number of people who have signed up to testify. We are going to limit your testimony to 1 minute. So excuse me if I cut you off, but we're going to stick to that rule this afternoon. First on our testifiers list, we have John DeFries from the Hawaii Tourism Authority.
This team stands by the comments that it offered in written testimony, and we will be available for any questions that may arise. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. DeFries. We have Mufi Hanneman from the Hawaii Lodging Association.
Thank you, Chair Wakai, Chair Nishihara, Chair Kiola, Okolole. Sorry about that, Okolole. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here today to testify in support of this measure. We feel that there's been some significant development since the measure was first proposed and it sailed through the House. Very pleased, for example, that Kauai has now opted back in to the program. It certainly reduces some of the confusion out there, not just for travelers here from the mainland, but certainly travelers who want to visit their relatives on the neighbor islands. We'd also have suggested in our testimony that an amendment be done to the bill where the one policy that at that time as it was going through the House, there was quite a bit amount of confusion, that it be restricted to dealing with the vaccination. We think now there needs to be more of a balance between ensuring strict safety and health protocols, but at the same time, continue to open up the economy. Despite the progress that we've been making, despite the surge in travel that we see during the spring break, we still have the highest unemployment rate in the nation. And there's still a need to put people back to work. We believe using the vaccination as a passport, if you will, for travel would obviate the need for quarantine and obviously still keep an option for people as a motivation to get vaccinated. We know that all the science and medical data has shown that one of the best safeguards against the variants is to be vaccinated. And that coupled with a control and community spread will go a long way. So we ask for that tweak if this bill is to be considered by these 3 committees to go forward. We think now more than ever the vaccination is the key to go forward. I also know with great interest in 2 Senate resolutions that were that were introduced on the Senate side. 11 senators have signed on to both resolutions saying in effect that vaccinations should be utilized as a means to bypass quarantine, and 2 of the chairs of the 3 committees today have signed on to that resolution. So we're hoping that too might provide some impetus to move this bill forward with that amendment. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify before you today.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hanneman. We have Bambi Lau from HLTA Hawaii Island Chapter. Is Bambi around? Bambi's not here. Next on our testifiers list, we have Chip Bahau from the Sheraton Kauai Resort. Hi, Chip. Chip, I cannot hear you for some reason. Looks like you're unmuted. Can you try again? Chip? Ooh, I'm so sorry, Chip, I cannot hear you. Now you're muted, now looks like you're unmuted, but I'm sorry, can't hear you. Those who are online, Clarence, Jared, can you hear Chip? Cannot. Chip, I'm sorry we cannot hear you. I really appreciate you showing up, but we do have your testimony that is in support of this particular bill. So, sorry, I apologize that we are unable to hear you, but we have your testimony. I'm sorry, Chip, we're going to move on to Rob Robinson from Springboard Hospitality.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Rob.
Great, thank you. Hello, chairs and members of the committees. I'm Rob Robinson, Vice President and Managing Partner with Springboard Hospitality. We operate 10 hotels throughout the islands. When we began testifying on 1286, we were really in a different place than we are today. Kauai had not yet announced its intent to rejoin safe travels. Vaccines were scarce, if available at all. I don't even remember exactly. And inbound travel to the state was still way down. While the standardization of the statewide travel is still very important, I want to echo what Mufi Hanneman said. We really need to acknowledge where we are today, and urge everyone to consider adding language that allows both more flexibility for inter-island travel and also the implementation of this vaccine passport program or the like, so that we can continue the reboot of tourism that has shown some early signs of being promising with the spring break, upon us, and really allow people to travel to our great state, safely and also more freely, having been vaccinated. So really hope on behalf of Springboard Hospitality that will be a consideration moving forward. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. We have Myung-Oh from the Chamber of Commerce.
Aloha, good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, committee members. Myung-Oh here to testify on behalf of Sherry Minower McNamara and the Chamber of Commerce. We stand on our testimony in support of this measure, definitely with the successes and the ongoing vaccinations that's been definitely progressing. We definitely feel that standardizing trans-Pacific travel as well as, I think, streamlining inter-island travel, whether they are traveling for work or leisure, will be a great benefit for our economy, for our residents as well. So thank you very much, chairs and committee members.
Thank you, Myung. We have Pamela Tumpat from the Maui Chamber of Commerce. I don't see Pamela there, but we'll go on to Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Good afternoon, chairs Wakai Nishiara, Keapohole, vice chairs Misalucha, English, and Baker, and members of the committees. I'm Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We'll stand on our written testimony in support.
Thank you, Brian. Antoinette Davis from the Activities and Attractions Association of Hawaii. Is Tony joining us? Oh, there she is.
Chair Wakai, thank you so much for this opportunity to testify. My name is Tony Marie Davis. I am the Executive Director with the Activities and Attractions Association of Hawaii. And I apologize for not chiming in on this bill earlier. I am so busy pivoting companies, trying to keep them alive, helping them with PPP. Our part of the industry, and I stand on my written testimony, it asks for a little bit more than this current bill is offering. I would remind you that the whole reason we have Travel Safe is to protect our communities. And our community, the most vulnerable, is getting vaccinated. And that's happening. We have over 500,000 now that have been vaccinated. And I don't know if you've tried to travel here and go through the program. It is extremely difficult. Most visitors coming here don't think of counties, they think of the state. So uniting is exactly what we need to do. So thank you so much for this and for your time and all that you do. Aloha.
Thank you, Tony. Tina Yamaki, Retail Merchants Association.
Aloha and good afternoon. I'm Tina Yamaki, President of Retail Merchants of Hawaii. Appreciate this opportunity to testify, chairs. We stand strongly on our written testimony, but I would like to also suggest for consideration language in the bill that would include if travelers have completed their COVID vaccines and can show proof before they arrive in their, or when they arrive in our state, that they be allowed to arrive without quarantine. Mahalo.
Thank you, Tina. We have Mike Golichu from the Democratic Party of Hawaii. Mike, I don't believe is joining us. How about Cara Flores from Hawaii? Cara?
Aloha. I am testifying on behalf of Hale, Hawaii. We have a lot of supporters and a fairly large group of over 5,000. Many times we have all been frustrated by the inability of the departments to work together to have and utilize a plan. We are in opposition to this bill because while this does put into a single uniform plan, it puts it into law. And we have heard many of you complain about departments not having a plan or not a plan based on metrics. And this most important thing in this pandemic is to be able to pivot. And that's based on metrics generally. This plan has no metrics. It has no ability to pivot. It has no emergency brake. If things start going really bad with these variants, there's no way to stop this plan. If our hospital gets overwhelmed on Maui, where most of our cases are this variant from California, there's no emergency brake to put in further actions. It takes away our executive branch's ability to use their emergency orders, and the intention of that is for the executive branch to do it. The legislature should not be taking the executive branch's authority away, ability away, and we all know that things are not done perfectly. We've all had a lot of frustration. No matter what side of the fence people are on, this can be really bad if things get way worse. It can be really bad if things get way better. If things get way better and there's no cases in Hawaii and there's no cases somewhere where someone travels, this is now in law. We shouldn't codify a plan into law. We should leave it with the emergency actions that are with the executive branch. They're with the executive branch because it's more efficient.
Could we have you wrap up?
Yes.
1 minute.
I just want to say, if you vote and pass this plan and it doesn't work out and people die, you will have blood on your hands because you've taken the executive branch power and you've tied the hands of the mayors and the governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. James Raymond has, there's Mr. Raymond.
Aloha, chairs, vice chairs, and committee members. My name is James Raymond. Until January of last year, I served as a Deputy Attorney General for the state of Hawaii. But I'm now retired and speak only as a concerned citizen in strong opposition to HB 1286. I'm going to have to go off my prepared remarks because a minute is really, I don't know if that qualifies as public input, but I'm going to stick to that. Look, in my experience in reviewing bills, which I've reviewed a lot of them, this is one of the worst in terms of being misunderstood or possibly misrepresented. But in hopes that it's just a misunderstanding, I want to clarify a couple of points. One is that the going concern seems to go something like this. Well, the bill only brings Kauai in line with the rest of the state. Since Kauai plans to rejoin safe travels very soon anyway, there's no harm in passing this bill, especially since the tourist lobby is pushing it so hard. Well, that's not the effect of the bill, and because I'm out of time, I'm going to ask the senators to really understand what this bill does, because it doesn't do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. We have testimony from Department of Health Resource Administration.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Dave Johnston with the Department of Health. We stand on the testimony that we were submitted, and I'm here for any questions if there are any.
Great, thank you, Dave. And we have Luke Myers from Haima. That's all I have, but I see someone else, Lynn. Lynn, could you identify yourself?
Hi, my name is Lynn Otaguro. Thank you, chairs and members of the committee. I am testifying in opposition to the bill. I recently retired as a teacher, but before that, I served as an attorney for the state. And when I read this bill, I was worried. One of the most important roles of government is the ability to protect its people in times of emergency. And this bill will limit the state's emergency powers and its ability to fulfill that role. It locks into place a travel protocol that does not align with our own Department of Health's recommendations. But worse than that, this bill takes away the state's ability to act quickly, even if we find that a change in the travel protocol is necessary to keep our people healthy and safe. Travel brings in more cases, and with the variants, there are more risks. This morning, the House Committee on COVID was told that this is a vulnerable time and vaccinations are not enough to carry us through with the variants that have already started. So precautions are still needed. COVID-19 is an emergency where the ability to act quickly is critical. It would be foolish to tie our hands and limit our ability to respond. Kauai is rejoining the Safe Travels programs. Concerns regarding confusion about travel requirements can be addressed through better messaging and communication. This law is not needed and poses greater potential threat. Please vote against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony, Lynn. I think that's all we have on our online testimony. Members, any questions of those who have joined us online? No? Okay, if not, we are going to break briefly prior to taking the vote. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience. We're reconvening this triple joint hearing for our 3 o'clock agenda on House Bill 1286. The three chairs have conferred and can see that there's the necessity for some level of flexibility. We did contemplate the idea of a travel passport, but that was seen as perhaps not quite ready for prime time because there are a lot of still question marks as to how that would actually look. So the chairs have decided that we are going to defer any action on House Bill 1286. So thank you everyone for your time this afternoon. We are adjourned. Agenda with the Committee on Energy, Economic Development and Tourism and our good friends from the Committee on Higher Education. There is one bill on this agenda, that is House Bill 862 HD2 relating to state government. This is moving the Pisces program from DBET into the University of Hawaii at Hilo. And on our testifiers list, we have Rodrigo Romo from Pisces.
Aloha. Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committee. We stand in support of our testimony, supporting the bill in question, and we are available for any questions that any member of the committees may have. Mahalo.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Chung Chen, from DBET.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee. DBET stands on its written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Chung. Kalei Raposa from the University of Hawaii.
Good afternoon, Senators. The university stands on its written testimony, and we are available to answer questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. Kalei, Brian Hallett from the Department of Education.
Good afternoon, Chair Wakai, Chair Makoto Kim. The department stands on its testimony in support, particularly sections 3 and 4, transferring the Challenger Center to the Hawaii Department of Education. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much, Brian. That's all I have for online testimony. Members, any questions for those who have joined us online?
I do have questions.
Senator Kim?
Yeah, I have questions. You know, when you guys stand on your testimony and you don't say if you're in favor or why you're in favor, I have an issue with that, so can we start again and hear from why, let's see, Pisces is in favor, and why is DBIT? Are you in favor? Are you, what exactly are you telling us?
Sorry, can we go back to Rodrigo? Rodrigo, you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Yeah, let me address the question. Pisces is in support of the bill, transferring Pisces from DBIT to the University of Hawaii in Hilo, attached to Imiloa, would allow Pisces to continue doing the work we are doing in economic development, workforce development, outreach, and applied research. So we support the proposed bill since it allows Pisces to continue doing the work that we are doing.
Was it going to cost any additional funding for the move, or are we going to save money?
From what I understand, there's not going to be any additional cost to the move.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess, Chung? What are your comments?
Thank you, Chair. Our comment is basically just because it's abolishing the Office of Aerospace Development, our comment is just to provide, what OAD's mission was, and we're going to defer to Pisces for whether or not it's going to work for Pisces to be moved to UH Hilo. It seems to be, it's preferred because, as you know, the governor actually has defunded Pisces. So this will allow Pisces to remain as a program attached to UH Hilo. So for Pisces, we do support it, but from administration's standpoint, it doesn't support the governor's budget. So those are our comments, Senator.
Okay, does it relieve you folks from any of the monetary or the budget?
It was, as far as, abolishing Office of Aerospace, it will save the position and operational expense. But the measure does provide for, Pisces to be moved to UH Hilo and separately provide funding for the Challenger Center. We hope there will be a separate budget for the Challenger Center, because OED has been the pass-through agency for that program.
So what's been the budget for Pisces under DBID?
Pisces' budget is $550,000 in general funds.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kalei Raposa? UH Hilo?
Yes, I'm back. Yes, UH Hilo supports Section 1 of HB 862 that transfers Pisces over to UH Hilo for administrative purposes only. We understand that the funding is supposed to flow with this transfer, and we support this bill provided that it is properly funded.
Okay, thank you very much.
Brian Hallett, DOE?
I think you wanted to...
Hi, similar to Kalei, we're looking at this as basically net neutral, or funding would follow to continue to support the Challenger Center. So with the change you're making to the program, we're hoping the funding can be maintained but just transferred to the DOE.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, any further questions of those who are joining us online? Okay, if not, we're going to take a quick recess prior to taking the vote. Thank you for your patience. We're reconvening our joint committee with the Energy, Economic Development and Tourism Committee and our friends from the Higher Education Committee for discussion on House Bill 862 HD1 relating to state government. The two chairs have conferred we see the value in continuing to have Pisces and the state have an opportunity to chase aerospace as an economic driver as well as a research driver for the University of Hawaii at Hilo, and would like to just make one amendment. As we dissolve OLAD, one of the responsibilities that the Office of Aerospace had is to take care of unmanned aircraft systems, or UAS, otherwise known as drones. We want to make sure that we keep that as a responsibility. I would like to move that responsibility over to Pisces, but the rest of OAT is gone with this bill. So that's the only recommended amendment to the measure. Members, any discussion? If not, Senator Revere, I vote yes.
I'm sorry, what was amended, yeah?
Amendment.
Amended.
Okay, Chair's recommendations pass HB 862 HD2 with amendments. Chair votes aye. Senator Misalucha is excused. Senator Lee?
Aye.
I vote aye. Senator Favela?
Aye.
Senator Misalucha?
Aye.
All in favor, adopted, Chair.
All right, great vote.
Okay, same recommendation for the Committee on Higher Education to pass HB 862 with amendments. So Chair votes aye.
Senator Kidani is excused. Senator Keith Agron excused. I vote yes. Senator Favela? Aye. Chair recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you all. We are
We are adjourned. Hi, aloha everyone. We are ready for our 3:30 agenda with the Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism. We have two items on this agenda. First is House Bill 1191 HD2 relating to broadband service infrastructure. First on our testifiers list, we have Bert Lum from DBED.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Bert Lum. I'm the Strategy Officer for Broadband in DBED. DBED stands on its written testimony in support of this bill, and of course I am available for any questions from the committee members. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. We have Peggy Mertzwa from Aloha Care.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Aloha Care stands in support of this bill that would help to expand broadband throughout our state. We've heard, from our providers that it's been very difficult to connect with many of their patients in various areas to get telehealth to them over the past year. But we all know there's also been challenges with education and working remotely. So we stand in support of this bill. Thanks so much for hearing it.
Thank you for joining us, Peggy. Felipe Monroe from Charter Communications. Hi, Felipe.
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. It's my pleasure to be here today regarding this bill. We stand on our written testimony and are prepared to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Felipe. Members, that's all I have for those who are testifying or signed up to testify. Any questions for those who are with us? Felipe, if I could please call you back just for a couple of quick questions. How many states does Charter operate in?
41 states.
Okay, and is it correct? So Charter is the main impetus for wanting to establish this grant program with the intent of providing broadband to underserved or underserved areas. But from what I understand, Charter has chased a lot of federal monies across the U.S. And you had $1.2 billion in federal RDOF money to deploy broadband infrastructure in many of your 41 states. But you did not chase $1 for Hawaii. Why is that?
Senator, the question about RDOF, as you've stated, we are in 41 states throughout the union, and it had to be made as a decision on a state-by-state basis based on the unique circumstances in each of those states. I would point out that RDOF is only one of a number of programs, both federal as well as approximately 23 states which have grants programs related to broadband infrastructure. And although we did not participate in the RDOF for phase 1 in Hawaii, that does not preclude future participation. And as well, I would just kind of note that even with RDOF, the issue of broadband connectivity is larger than any one program, which is why we are supportive of seeing a bill such as HB 1191 passed in Hawaii to be able to connect more people throughout the islands to the internet.
Okay, but is that to say that in the future, when, I don't know if there's going to be RDOF round 2, 3, and 4, is it your inclination that at a certain point, Spectrum's actually going to chase federal funding, or are you going to only rely on this grant program to spur broadband deployment?
We would have to look at the RDOF program and any future funding rounds and what that looks like. But the previous decision does not preclude any future participation. And in no way do we feel that this bill precludes being able to participate or exclude federal funds from RDOF coming into Hawaii. This program is intended to complement, not compete with federal dollars.
Okay, I mean, it still troubles me about Spectrum's lack of chasing federal funds for the benefit of Hawaii. What is it about Hawaii that's unique that doesn't compel you guys to chase money here? I just kind of don't get it. I mean, you got $1.2 billion that have benefited other states, but Hawaii has benefited nothing from your achievements elsewhere. What is it about Hawaii that precludes you from chasing money for our state?
Senator, as I stated before, it's just a decision that was made on a state-by-state basis. As you asked, we are in 41 states, and not all of those were we able to participate in RDOF for round 1 of the program. Each location is unique, and it has to be treated on a case-by-case basis, and that's how it was viewed as we were going through the process.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. What is it going to take for Hawaii to be one of the cases where you actually chase federal monies to benefit all of us?
I appreciate the question, Senator, I really do, and I understand why you're asking that. As I said, RDOF is only one program at the federal level that includes dollars that can come into a state. And again, each of them has to be treated on a case-by-case basis. I would not infer from that decision in RDOF round 1, in this latest round of RDOF, that means that we would never participate in any federal program to bring dollars into Hawaii for broadband expansion. It really is about looking at them on a case-by-case basis and what makes sense for us as a carrier and what we can do there.
Okay. Okay, Felipe. I mean, I'm trying to help you. I mean, if there's a regulatory environment here that somehow is different from the other states you function with that precludes you from chasing these monies, I want to make sure that if there are any impediments from a business standpoint, that we help reduce those impediments so you, in future RDOF phases, will chase that. But I don't quite understand what's going on in the executive level at Spectrum or Charter that precludes Hawaii from benefiting from these funds. I mean, is there something that we can change in a Hawaii's business environment that will compel you to go and get federal funds for Hawaii's benefit?
That's a very big question that probably has a number of answers to it, right? As you know, these are complicated issues that don't just have, there's not a silver bullet to solving these types of things. I think I would be remiss without being able to talk to our folks there, as well as just kind of having larger conversations about what are some of those factors that we can look at going forward to try and make, federal program achievable for us there. That being said, I would like to go back to emphasize my point that no federal program or combination thereof is going to solve this issue in Hawaii. That's why we're looking at a complementary program such as this, that can this one, HB 1191, which can help connect people in Hawaii on a short-term basis as quickly as possible to the internet. So we're looking at it in its totality here and doing what we can to try and bring broadband to more folks in Hawaii through this program.
Okay, thank you, Felipe. Members, any further questions? No? Okay, thank you, Felipe, for joining us. Members, we're going to move on to our next bill. That is House Bill 1174 relating to taxation. First on our testifiers list, we have Isaac Choi from the Department of Taxation.
Aloha, Chair Wakamis, Vice Chair Mr. Lucha, members of the committee. Titin Sakata on behalf of Director Choi, we stand on our written testimony in opposition of proposed SD1. And I'm available to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Glenn from Energy Office.
Aloha, Chair Wakai and Vice Chair Misalucha and members of the committee. I'm here for Scott Glenn, Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, Deputy Energy Officer. We offer comments on the section of this bill that of HB 1171 HD1 is proposed, which would reduce by half the renewable energy technologies income tax credit cap amounts for most residential and commercial systems, beginning in January of this year coming up, 2021. We're guided by our mission to promote energy efficiency and renewable energy in clean transportation to help achieve a resilient, clean energy, decarbonized economy. Incentives have proven to be an effective mechanism to achieve these goals. A change of this degree could cause a significant disruption in the industry for both behind-the-meter and grid-scale projects, as well as for homeowners and businesses looking to reduce their expenses at this very challenging time. We also note that the proposed start date is retroactive to January 1st of this year. A retroactive change of this type would not allow the difference to be factored into existing agreements or contracts and could cause customer prices to increase. Furthermore, projects have moved forward with contracts and agreements based on the availability of the tax credit at its present amount. So reducing the credit would have detrimental effects on project financing and the construction of renewable energy projects to achieve our state's renewable energy goals. So we appreciate this opportunity to testify and are here to answer any questions. Mahalo.
Great, thank you, Kirsten. Gwen Yamamoto Lau from GEMS.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Gwen Yamamoto Lau, Hawaii Clean Infrastructure Authority. We stand on our written testimony with comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. Kaiolani Shinsato from Hawai'i Electric. Oh. Sorry, Lori, we cannot hear you. Or Lonnie, we can't hear you. Sorry, we had this problem with one testifier earlier. Can you try to speak again, Lonnie?
Aloha, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Aloha and good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I am Kaiulani Shinsato, the Director of Customer Energy Resources Programs at Hawaiian Electric. We stand on our written testimony offering comments on this proposed bill. Of course, we are happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lonnie. Beth Tokioka from Kauai Island Utility Cooperative.
Hello, good afternoon. Trying to start my video here, but it doesn't appear to be starting.
No, we can hear you though.
Try one more time. Okay, great. Thank you very much, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'd like to just briefly summarize our testimony. We are asking for an amendment to this bill, and very briefly, we are hoping to preserve the tax credits that are currently available to the West Kauai Energy Project, which is our pumped storage hydro coupled with solar, currently in development and very important to our efforts to reach the 100% RPS. This project, when complete in 2025, would bring us to 80% renewable production. It also involves the investment of hundreds of millions of dollars into state infrastructure and a true partnership with the state. Last year, Senate Bill 2820 did carve out tax credits for this bill. We were very grateful for that support. We did move quickly to comply with the deadlines in that bill and have a PPA before the PUC. And the pricing in that PPA is assuming that the solar tax credits will be available to the project. Again, the project would be probably complete likely in 2025, so we wouldn't be accessing the credits until that time. And we're just asking you to please consider, once again, a carve out for this important project, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Beth. Robert Harris from Hawai'i PV Coalition.
Yes, aloha, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'll be brief and trying to summarize our written testimony, and I will be available for any questions you might have. Just briefly, as we come out of COVID, the need to restart our economy is obviously foremost. 1 out of 20 new jobs nationally do arise out of the solar industry, and currently the solar industry is one of the bright lights, I think, in the construction industry in Hawaii. In addition, I'd just like to note essentially a new development that the Commission has identified a 50 megawatt system reliability need that it is aggressively trying to address in the next 12 to 18 months. And our ability to do that and ensure that we do have a reliable, safe grid is somewhat contingent upon the ability for people to install rooftop solar with batteries. So we urge you to consider that and consider the need for Hawaii to continue to support the development of more renewable energy. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Robert. Rocky Mold from Hawaii Solar Energy Association.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Rocky Mold, Hawaii Solar Energy Association. We stand on our written testimony in opposition to the proposed SD1, in particular Section 3. I'm here to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rocky. Brian Gold from Inter-Island Solar Supply.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Largely stand on our written testimony opposing the new language in HB 1174 SD1. I'll just serve to highlight our unique perspective as an equipment supplier in the market is that we see the impact that policy changes have had over time to the various companies in the industry. And each of these policy changes results in a significant implementation gap at a time when the state is making great progress towards the 100% renewable goal, and the rooftop solar industry is a large part of that. So respectfully, we oppose this and available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Ricardo Galindez from Island Film Group.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand on our testimony in support of the classification of film and TV production as manufacturing for general excise tax purposes, as well as the proposal to be able to carry forward any unused refundable tax credits. We stand on our testimony and are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Roy Joe.
Thank you, Chair Wakai, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We have submitted written testimony. We stand on that testimony, but we are ready and prepared to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Roy. Sandy Wong?
Yes. Good afternoon, Chair and Vice Chair. I am also on behalf of Island Film. I think you'll notice in their testimony, we did offer some amendments to clarify some sections, and it's really just deleting some words to make it easier to read. And if you will, Chair, in regards to the renewable tax credit, on behalf of Tesla, we oppose that section. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation.
Thank you, Chair and members. Tom Yamachika from Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We've submitted written testimony on both parts. We have submitted some extensive analysis on the general excise tax provisions that Mr. Galindez briefly referred to. The provisions sought in this bill basically would mirror the department's interpretation for several years as set forth in our testimony. And if the committee would like to, that part can be reset as a technical clarification, but the carve out to a certain income class or a certain production size would have to go. We would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Tom. Ted Peck from Holu Energy.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I do stand on the testimony provided, but wanted to note a number of things. First, to emphasize the rousing success of the credit paired with the RPS. Rooftop solar is critical to achieving that RPS, and the incentive is what drives rooftop solar. Secondly, I wanted to note a project that my company is doing on the island of Kauai. It's been in development for 2 years. It is solar for an LMI, a workforce housing group, and it has been in development for 2 years. So if this credit had or this bill had passed 2 years ago, that project wouldn't be happening. So it's really critical, both the caps and then in the worst case that you grandfather projects that are under contract. Thank you for the time and the opportunity, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you, Ted. Tiffany Dane from Tesla has submitted testimony in opposition. We have Micah Munakata from Ulupono has submitted commentary. Ryan McCauley from Titrium Enterprises. I'm sorry, he's not here to testify. Oh, and last testifier, Donnie Dawson from the Film Office.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. Donnie Dawson with the Hawaii Film Office representing DBED. Apologize for the lateness of our testimony. I'm just testifying on behalf of Section 1, really, the motion picture digital media film production income tax credit. And we stand on our written comments. I just do want to call attention to the one section referring to the general excise tax rate, and ask that the committee consult with the Attorney General to address the issue of it being offered to different qualified productions, different rates to different qualified productions. And as previous testifiers have already mentioned, we believe that that would create an issue for the AG's office. So mahalo for the opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Donnie. Members, any questions of those who've joined us online? Senator
Chair, just, oh, thanks. Real quick for Mr. Gold, I think it was, if you're still with us.
Still here.
Oh, hi, thanks. The one thing that I wanted to just ask about, if there's more recent data. Obviously, when we started this tax credit, like a decade ago, the predominant adoption was in what tend to be wealthier communities that generally could afford the higher cost of solar installation at the time. Since then, and then the last time I looked at some of the data was probably like 2 or 3 years ago, but since then that's switched to, the Waipahus and the communities that typically weren't first adopters. And they tended to be more working class folks that were able to finally afford solar and batteries and everything else as the price continued to decline. So I guess what I'm asking is, where is that now? I mean, are we still seeing adoption from those sorts of like working class communities? Because the one thing I would hesitate about is, cutting off a credit when the folks who were tended to be able to afford it in the first place were able to install everything, in the first part of the last decade, and then now that it's being widely adopted by folks who are less able to afford that, do we run that risk? Do we know which communities or where that inflection point is at this time?
Yeah, it's a great question. Over the last few years, one of the really innovating things about the industry has been the wealth of creative financing platforms that are available to the communities, and allowing folks in those communities to access clean energy solutions and take control of their rising energy costs. Just prior to this, I was a few minutes late because I was on a call with the Department of Planning and Permitting talking about the implementation of Bill 58 in Honolulu County, which, if we can get implementation right, really opens up access to the townhome and condo community, which has been completely untouched by clean energy, really across the state, not just in Honolulu. But this is a really pivotal step, and having seen this, within our company before, where tax credit changes and other policy changes have caused these gaps in the market that I spoke of, we will see a reduction in clean energy solutions deployed on LMI rooftops if this goes forward as structured.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Senator Rivera?
I have a question, Jim.
I have a question for the Department of Tax. Taxation. Are you back?
Yes, not sure what's wrong with the video, but I'm here.
Okay, thanks. So in the testimony, the department is very concerned about the 0.5% tax instead of the 4% general excise tax. What if it was restructured to something like a tax credit then on the first $3 million of receipts, so that the difference between 0.5% and 4% on $3 million is $105,000. What if at the end of the year, when taxes were processed, if there was a credit then, so that all film productions on the first $3 million were to receive an equal credit? Would that kind of pass muster? Would that work?
Senator, review this, the TV production companies already receive an income tax credit of 20-25% of all the costs that they spend in Hawaii. So this is in addition to receiving the income tax credits. We are granting a special rate for contemplating a special rate for this production for the general excise tax. Right now, general excise tax, it's 4%. For everybody, regardless of whether the company's total revenue is 100,000, a million, 100 million. Right now, everybody's rate is the same. If it's retail, it's at 4%. If it's wholesale, it's at 0.5%.
Pardon me, but the purpose of this, I believe the purpose of this proposed measure would be to help the smaller production companies have because they're more severely impacted by the amount of the tax on the GET for their production. So if we could come up with a way that treated every tax filer in that category the same, by maybe providing them some form of credit at the end of the year, maybe it doesn't go directly in this against the GET, but maybe we look at it in a different portion. But if there were a credit for taxes paid, or for some reason you come up with a credit for those people who paid up to the first $3 million, that should be fair and equitable, right? If it applies to everybody in that industry. So the big guys, it doesn't matter too much, they don't care. But the little guys, it matters a lot. Would that work?
As we state in our testimony, it's hard to implement, and the big company, they could break themselves apart into a smaller production to make sure that the production company doesn't exceed the $3 million.
Yes.
And they could have multiple small, so-called small production entities, so that they would stay below the 3 million threshold. And there's no way to police that, because there's no limitation of how many smaller companies you can have.
I got it, yep.
There's a lot of work around the system.
Okay, I got it. Thank you for your testimony, that's helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Misalucha.
Yes, Scott Glenn, please.
Kirsten from Energy Office.
Hello. Hi, Kirsten. So in the testimony from the Hawaii State Energy Office, I think you mentioned about how you would recommend that the effective date be pushed back, particularly because there's potential projects that may be impacted by this. So any idea, Kristen, how many projects you're talking about? And I guess in your, conceptually, is there any particular threshold, or are you talking about all the potential projects?
Well, we would really need to review all the potential projects that might be affected by this, and that's why we're suggesting changing the effective date, that one is later than this, but,
I can understand being grandfathered, but I don't know about future, I mean, where do you draw the line as far as potential projects, right? Because there's a pipeline.
Yeah, and so I'd have to look at that pipeline to give you the exact number to make sure I'm not in error right now, but we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for DOE tax again, sorry.
Yes, Chair Okai.
Okay, I was listening to your discussion with Senator Revere, and that first section about the manufacturing, it seems a little just problematic, and I was reading the testimony provided by Tom Yamachika from the Tax Foundation as to why there's all this confusion. It was implemented, not implemented, something happened in 2019, there's a different interpretation, but was never collected. It was all this kind of back and forth. But could DOE tax on its own, without statute, figure out if they want to define filmmaking as manufacturing and thus provide the 0.5% on its own, or do you need a statute that helps define filmmaking as manufacturing?
Chair Wakai, yes, the department's current position is this is the venue to have the discussion whether the production company should be treated as manufacturing. The departments, yes, in the past, back in 2008, 2009, issue tax information releases and proposed rules to allow the film company to be treated as manufacturing, but the rule was never adopted. And 10 years has gone by, more than 10 years has gone by, and we review all the previous guidance, and we believe that DOE tax does not have the authority to grant the special the special rate. So it should be discussed at the legislative level, and it should be decided via statutory change. Because right now, the definition of manufacturing, it's a typical production of tangible personal property, and there's no mention about film production in the manufacturing of, and the 0.5% treatment of manufacturing in the general excise tax law. So the department believes that it is the legislative power to look at and to have a discussion whether it should be treated as such or what should be the appropriate rate. But right now, we believe that it should be like everybody else. It's subject to the 4% general excise tax.
Okay, I think I'm understanding. So if we were to define it as manufacturing, essentially we'd be giving an extra 4% to all of the productions, right? So the 20/25% tax credit would be 24/29%, right? Because they would be, won't have to pay 4.5%, they just have to pay 0.5%. So we essentially be giving them an extra 4% credit, correct?
Well, it's the income tax credit is 25%, and then the GET, it really depending on each entities, how they structure their income and where they're getting their income from. And we also caution, because defining a production company as a manufacturer, it extends the 0.5% treatment to what we call the loan out. Those are the actors, the executive producers. They loan their service out to themselves. So you could have an actor making $10 million per movie, and right now we say they're subject to 4%. But if you treat the production company as a manufacturing, then they'll only have to pay 0.5% on the $10 million. We believe that it should be 4%. So that's our current position right now. So treating production company as a manufacturer extend to beyond just the tax on the production company itself. It also extend the 0.5% to the actors, the executive producers, most of the above the line crew and above the line cast and crew that makes big bucks. Most of them are not employees, they're independent contractors or loan-out companies. So there's the implication of treating the production company as a manufacturer. It's the cost to the general fund, the revenue loss to general fund, it's bigger than on the surface. It has ripple effects.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to figure out how to help the small production companies, but I can see where, by trying to carve them out as manufacturing, we'd have to give the big guys that same carve out, right? We kind of have two different levels of GET, so we would be foregoing a huge pot of money by not taxing the CBSs or the Universals of the world at 4.5%.
Senator, I wonder if I could speak? This is Roy.
Just briefly, Roy.
Just to answer your question before, Senator, you asked whether or not the GET would provide film production companies with an additional credit. The answer is no. The credit is 20 to 25%, depending on which island you're filming on. The GET is a tax against that. So if we are taxed at 4.5%, we are effectively reducing our credit from 20% to 15%. That's the problem that we're facing. And the GET is also applied to the budgets themselves. So before we were paying 0.5% on the money that is being sent to us to produce a film or TV project, and now it's going to be taxed at 4%. So it's a huge difference that small companies cannot bear. So to answer your question, the answer is no, it would not increase the credit, it would decrease it substantially. And to Titan's point about the loan-out companies, that is a source that we think DOTAX was trying to address, because loan-out companies were, not paying the full GET on that, and we understand that. So there may be a carve-out in terms of loan-out companies being subject to, either a higher tax or only a certain amount of money, being available for the production tax credit. So there are ways, in other words, to capture the money that the state is losing from the loan-out companies. But the ripple effect of applying that 4.5% to the whole industry is, like I said, to effectively reduce the credit substantially, which disproportionately impacts the small production companies.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Roy, but then DOTAX points out we can't have two different categories of GET assessments, as I tried to do here, because if I were to just have everybody manufacturing, we would forego a lot of tax revenue from the CBSs of the world. So to help you, we're going to totally hurt the state coffers by doing that, and that I don't think is going to be appreciated by our money.
And one solution to that would be to consider the first 3 million of any production to be manufacturing, and then the big studios who are beyond that would pay the full 4.5%. So if there is a way to kind of address both, there is a way to help small production companies by saying that the first $3 million of a qualified production costs are to be considered manufacturing. That would be across the board for all productions. And then for productions that have budgets beyond that, dollar amounts beyond $3 million would be charged at the highest rate or whatever. And that way you can capture the full tax on the big studios.
Yeah, but with that scenario, we're losing money off of you, smaller guys, and we're losing $3 million right off the top for the people who can afford to pay it, which would be a loss of revenues again.
Well, I mean, that's the balancing that we'd have to make in order to make this not, disproportionately affect certain companies compared to others. But I'm saying that for big studios, their spend is going to be way beyond $3 million. So you will be capturing the full GET on a large sum of money for them, while at the same time allowing small production companies like us to benefit from the smaller GET rate.
Chair Kai, this is Donnie Dawson. Can I add something to this?
Very briefly, Donnie.
Sorry. I just want to point out the fact that there has been a definition for manufacturing. You cannot just take all of the expenditures associated with the production and say that you're going to apply the manufacturing rate. Manufacturing rate, by definition, and as it has been applied in the past, speaks to those services that are provided to a production that contribute to the creation or manufacturing, if you will, of that product. And it is defined as such in other jurisdictions, in other state jurisdictions, and at a federal level. So we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel here. This is a definition that has been used in the past, only applicable to those productions or those entities whose services contribute to the manufacturing of that film product.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I'm sorry, Tintin, a couple of more questions about the second part of the bill is to have a carryover balance for these smaller productions. And you said you can't do that again because you can't have the big set of rules for the big guys and a set of rules for the little guys. But if we were to make it for all taxpayers, because there's no loss in revenue of deferring the credit, would that be okay if we just, whether you're CBS or whether you're Roy and Rick, you can carry over the balance if you so choose to a future year? Is that okay?
Yes, Chair Walker, we state in our testimony, so if it's an election for anybody to whether to have the credit refunded to them or whether they want to have it, what we call it as a non-refundable credit, so they can use it against the liability, and if they don't use it up, they can carry it to be used against their future liability. We are fine with it as long as you make it an election for everybody.
Got it. Okay, sorry, one last
So
question.
instead of just a specific taxpayer.
In the tail end of your testimony, you talk about the American Rescue Plan and caution us that, if we provide tax relief, we can't use federal monies to supplant whatever that loss is. But in this particular case, for that part, the second part of this bill, not the film part, but the solar part, we're not increasing the give to the public or to the business community. We're actually reducing the amount of tax give to those beneficiaries. So this idea that we would have to repay the feds for any ARP funds, that doesn't apply for the solar tax credit, right? That what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
It does not.
The American Rescue Plan Act would only apply for if you have any revenue reduction because of a credit or a rebate or a change in a policy that would reduce the revenue. Yes, and the change in the renewable energy income tax credit, yes, it will not result in revenue loss. It would actually be the other way around, except we are concerned about the retroactive application of the reduction in the credit, because somebody could have paid for and installed the solar on their rooftop, say on February 1st, with expectation that they would get $5,000 in the credit. But if we pass this bill as is, this person would only now get 2,500 rather than the 5,000 that the person expected, because the law at the time when we placed the solar in the rooftop was they were entitled to a $5,000 credit. So we were concerned about that, and we suggest that it should be it should move forward, not retroactive.
Yep, we'll
for the
carry
effective
that.
date of the bill.
Great, thank you. Members, any further questions of those who are online? Okay, thank you, everyone. We're going to go briefly into a recess prior to taking the vote. Thank you for your patience. We are reconvening the Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism for our 3:30 agenda. First bill is House Bill 1191 HD2 relating to broadband service infrastructure. We, on this committee, see the great value in deploying more broadband, particularly to underserved or partially served areas. So we're going to make 4 substantive amendments to this measure. We're going to take charter suggested amendments regarding underserved areas. This is to clarify that if there are federal funds that are in jeopardy, that they will not be in jeopardy. So that's clarifying language for that part. We're going to take Department of Transportation suggested amendments to include partially served areas. Right now, the bill only has monies provided for unserved areas. So we're going to include partially served areas. We're going to take Office of Information Practices suggested amendments that the confidentiality provision be amended so that we know who's actually applying for these grants. And on page 6, line 3, we're going to change the percentage. Right now it's 60 state, 40 private entity. We're going to change it so it's 50-50, so everybody's got even skin in the game. So those are the 4 recommended amendments. Members, any discussion? If not, Senator Misalucha, I vote yes.
For Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism, as it relates to House Bill 1191 HD2, Chair recommends pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Lee?
Aye.
Senator Revere?
Aye.
Senator Favela is excused. You have 4 ayes. Your recommendation's adopted,
I'm going to
Chair.
put my glasses for the
Yeah,
4
yeah,
ayes.
4 ayes.
Okay, back to that joke. Okay, we have now we're on to House Bill 1174 HD1 relating to taxation. This is regarding the film tax credit and the solar tax credits. We heard about how that manufacturing issue is a real trouble spot in how we define it, who gets to utilize it. So we're going to delete that section 1. For section 2, this is the part where you can carry over the credit. We're going to change it so that there's no longer that $3 million ceiling, that we're just going to have everyone, whether you're the big boys or whether you're the small boys, you can, if you so choose, defer taking the credit all at once. It's not going to impact the finances of the state. The third recommendation is we're going to take those taxes suggested amendments about publishing on the website the names of the qualified productions and the amount of the tax credits certified per qualified production per year. I think the public deserves to know who's getting these credits and how much the credits are. The next amendment is going to be on page 6, line 12. We're going to change the rolling cap. Right now, it has it at $45 million. We're going to change it back to $15 million. Line, huh?
It's actually line 13.
Okay, page 6, line 13. So it's going to be a $50 million cap. We're going to change the sunset date of the film tax credit. Right now it says 2033. We're going to change it back to 2026. Make sure that these guys come back and tell us why it's still needed in 2026. Now moving to the solar part of this bill, we're going to make 2 changes. We're going to take HECO's suggested amendments for community-based renewable energy projects for commercial properties. Right now it's at $500,000. The bill contemplates cutting it to $250,000. We're going to keep it at $500,000. And then we're going to change the taxable years for this cutting of the credits to the beginning after December 31st, 2021. Members, any questions about those suggested changes? No? Yes, Senator Lee?
Oh, no, I appreciate all the work on this. Just note my reservations. To be consistent with the bill the Senate passed out earlier in the year.
Yes, you are very consistent, Senator Lee. If no further discussion, Senator Misalucia, I vote yes.
For House Bill 1174, HD1, Chair recommends pass with amendments. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Lee?
Just reservations, please.
Senator Rivera?
Aye.
And Senator Favela is excused. You have 3 ayes, 1 reservations. Your recommendation's adopted, Chair.
Great, thank you, everyone. We're adjourned. Woo-hoo, 4:30.